Know what to eat, but find yourself not eating it. Perhaps you've been on diets and off again and just wonder why you can't stick to them. The Eating For You podcast, hosted by me, Sally Ann Pisk, will show you what's been missing so you can enjoy a healthier way of eating that lasts. It's my pleasure today to be talking to Annette about her journey with food and eating. And as you will learn through our conversation today, it is possible to become an expert in a way of eating that works for you. So welcome, Annette.
Thanks for having me, Sally Ann. Nice to be here with you today.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. But just before we get started, I just want to share a little bit about you. For work, you're currently helping unemployed people who are motivated to find work, and that's an online role that you have. And up until 2019, you worked in education. So a nice transition to online work for you there. And outside of work, and I'm just referring to my notes because I've got to get these very important beings' names correct. So Annette has her toy poodle, Lulu, who we sometimes see online, which is always fun in catch-up calls. She has Mishy, her very white cat, and a scraggly crew of bantam chooks and some goldfish who live in her lotus pond. And you may have actually seen photos of the lotus. Sometimes Annette shares that in our Facebook group. So Annette, we'll get underway, and I thought we'll just start with, just a broad look at what your journey with eating and food has looked like and felt like for you.
It's hard to know where to start because it starts way, way back. So my mum's a feeder. My earliest memories are sitting on the kitchen bench and her giving me dough from biscuits and things that she was cooking. But I guess as far as the food weight trust type thing, that probably started when I was about 13, when my mum thought she would put me on my first diet. And that started a cycle of dieting of all sorts for many, 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 many years, and until I got to a point where I was recognising things that definitely not working on a lot of different levels, as far as the continuous failure and the undermining value or lack of value that had to your own well-being, to my well-being, etc. So, I got to a point where I sort of was doing a lot of evaluation about that and recognised that it was about the quantities that I was eating rather than the quality of the food. Because I've been to dietitians, I've done all sorts of things, and was told, oh, you eat really good food, like I wasn't one of these people that ate, I was going to say Macca's, 10 nights a week or whatever, 10 times a week or anything like that. And so, I just got to a point, and as you know, I decided, because I decided it's about quantity, I actually decided to go through with bariatric surgery and went through probably 3 or 4 years of researching and processing that before I finally went ahead with it.
Yeah. So tell me, at that point when, you were thinking about the bariatric surgery, you felt that was the answer to help you with the quantity? Is that was what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think so, because I had no sense of fullness or hunger. And it's funny because I probably didn't fully understand that at that point. It was probably during your program that I started to get a bit more of an idea of, hold on, am I hungry or not? Because if eating was just something that you did for lots of different reasons. And I used to laugh and say, oh, I eat if I'm sad, I eat if I'm happy, celebrating. It's like, So there was that loss of those intuitive, what would you call them? The triggers, or the intuitive sort of stuff that some people obviously have, where they're allowed to trust their system and know that they eat when they need to and don't eat when they don't need to.
Yeah, but as we've shared before, and I've shared with so many ladies, is that we're not actually taught to tune into hunger and satiety. And, going back to your childhood, you raised a really important thing that, part of your culture and your upbringing was to see food as love, and that sharing of food was really important for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, and also you bring into that, not wasting food. And, my parents were obviously around during the wars and things like that in Europe. And, so those elements came in too. So you didn't leave the table and leave food on your plate. Whereas
Yeah.
now I do leave food on the plate, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of background conditioning through life, yeah, for sure, that led me to where I decided
Yeah.
to take what I saw. It's not something I believed in. That's why it was so difficult for me to go ahead with it. It wasn't a quick decision.
No.
And yeah, and I think I can't remember if it was just before I had the surgery or just after. Whoever I saw said, "Oh, most people put the weight back on." And I went, "Seriously? Why are you telling me this?" You know? And yeah, so that was pretty bad, I thought, that they hadn't sort of discussed that, or they didn't have strategies to help people to deal with not happening, I guess.
Yeah, and it's common, and I have a friend and colleague who specializes in this area of work, and she's
Mm,
currently doing a PhD, and it's even by the 5 year mark, post bariatric surgery, many people have put most of the weight back on.
mm, mm.
I just can't, bring those stats to my head at the moment. So we know
It's high. It's high. It's like
yeah,
80% or something. It's
yeah,
really high. Yeah,
yeah.
which I think is terrible.
Yeah, and it's
Mm,
part of that whole, I think, understanding as you had, you just sort of felt that by reducing the capacity that you could eat, then that was
mm,
going to help you manage how much that you do eat. And it does to a certain degree. But as you mentioned, when we first met each other, there were some concerns for you with the weight coming back on. So it's certainly like a lot of things when it comes to eating, health and weight. It's not a quick fix. It's not the ultimate solution on
mm,
its own.
mm.
But before we talk a little bit more about that and, tuning into hunger and satiety now for you, I just want to talk to you a little bit about this whole dieting process for
Mm,
you
mm,
and
mm.
what you learnt that's been of benefit, but what also made it difficult for you to actually find a way of eating that you could sustain.
Gosh, I knew what didn't work, and that was those really regimented diets, because I think my mum put me on Weight Watchers. And this is in the 70s, so it was very different to what it looks like now. But everything was measured, and it was all diet jellies and unnatural, like you had to have 3 pieces of fruit and things like that. And I hated apples for like years. I would not eat apples because that's all we had was apples and oranges, and I just hated them. So that sort of thing never worked for me, and I didn't enjoy it at all. So that was often a quick road to failure. I also recognised for myself personally that how people say, "Oh, you have to exercise." That didn't always make any difference to me. And just over the years, I started to recognise, like we talk about the fad diets, about low carb or low fats and things like that. It really isn't. Well, for me, my observations were that it wasn't about that at all. Like, there's elements there, of course, but there's also we're also different. And so it's more about the stuff I learned through the program that started to kind of ping with me about, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tried like high protein things. I mean, I think Mum had me on the Israeli diet, you name it, during the 70s and 80s. They were heydays for some pretty incredible strategy things.
And it's interesting you
Yeah,
said that though, because they were happening obviously before I started my training as a
yeah,
dietitian. But when
yeah.
you look at some of the principles of those
Mm,
diets, they
mm.
they filter back in now. They're just called
Yes,
something
yes,
else.
yes, yeah.
And this is what I find so frustrating and often share.
Mm,
Just for those listening, Annette has mentioned the program a couple of times. She's talking about our Foundations Mindful Eating program, which isn't a diet. It really
no.
is focusing on finding that way of eating that suits
Mm,
you. And because I am a dietitian, I'm obviously not going to let anyone go off to scale with their eating in terms of not looking for that overall nutritional
mm,
balance.
mm.
But at this stage then, and maybe it might be interesting to say, well, at what point, or maybe you didn't realize, even when you started the Foundations program, but what point was it that you thought, yeah, I just can't do another diet, even perhaps after the
Oh,
bariatric surgery
no, it was
when you
before,
were concerned?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what led me to choose the bariatric, because all I kept experiencing was failure. And so for my own, my overall well-being and sense of potential was
Yeah.
being impacted, self-confidence, self-esteem, everything, because I just always expected failure. And
Yeah.
so it actually had a massive impact on lots of different aspects of my life, I guess, and the dieting cycle, whatever you want to call it, just added to that. It just confirmed that I would fail each time. So, so that was really a big one. And then just the practical side was the recognition about quantity. That's kind of what I gleaned out of whatever I had, as evidence before me. So
Yeah.
it would have been, and like probably the last major diet that I followed was, I don't know if you've heard of the Dukan diet, which is high protein.
Yeah.
Boy, did that work. I mean, there's some bad side effects at times, but you could counterbalance those. But as soon as the program stopped, I just went badump, and I think I put 30 kilos back on in like 6 months. Then that was like, I just went, whoa, that's just not working. That's just not sustainable. So, yeah, I think that's where it really sort of just kicked in that, hold on, I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to be in my 60s or because I was, early 50s then, and to continue to have the impact on my health, like my knees, things like that. And just, as you get older, your fitness is more impacted. When you're young, you can carry it a bit. So when I was young, I was still walking, I was riding, I was doing things with the kids. But I think I did not want to be debilitated, completely disabled by whatever age because of my weight. And I actually got to a point where I was so afraid that I would be it sounds awful because I know for some people this is a reality, but that I would weigh some enormous amount. Like I think my heaviest had been 120. I think now I'm not sure, 123 or something before I had surgery. And then I was just scared that it was just going to blow out to like 150 to, whatever, and then I would not be able to stop it. And that's what freaked me out completely.
Yeah.
And
So certainly that was obviously a major turning point for you
yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah,
choices that you made at that
yeah,
time in terms of
yeah,
that fear of weight gain, the
yeah,
impact on your health, and
mm,
just your general ability to
yeah,
move in life and enjoy life. And that can happen for anyone at different weights. I don't think there's an
yeah,
absolute weight that anyone reaches where they feel like, oh my goodness, I just don't want my weight going any higher than this.
mm.
Yeah, so tell me about that. You went through the bariatric surgery,
Mm,
and then
mm.
tell me about what was happening when you reached out to Eating for You.
So what had happened at that point was I had done really well after the bariatric. I actually went travelling for 6 months and all the rest, and managed to continue losing the weight because I really could not eat the quantities, but was enjoying what I was getting. And when I went back for my checkup, when I got back, they went, oh, you've lost 100%. No one loses 100%, but you'll probably put some back on, but not everybody does. This guy was really optimistic. But then, of course, because of the weight that I reached was that low, it started to go up slightly. And I wasn't worried because I knew, within 10, 15 kilos, I thought, yeah, that's okay. I think that's a good weight for me. But then it kept going up and I got over 90 kilos. I think I was up to 93 and I started freaking out. I thought, I don't want this. I don't want to go back there. And that's when I reached out to Eating for You.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what have I got to lose? I like mindfulness. I like meditation. I've always that's been a part of my life at different points. And mindfulness, I understood how that would be helpful as a philosophical approach to something like this, because I think I said to you, I've been looking for the key. Like I've been exploring so many years trying to work out what was I missing and just couldn't quite touch on it myself. And so, yeah, that's what led me to signing up, making that contact, have that first phone call, and then not looking back from there. Going through initial parts where I thought, oh, I don't know if this is relevant for me. And then suddenly, boom, the pennies started dropping. Oh, this is what I've been waiting to find out. This is it. This is the bits that, so that's where that's been life-changing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. We'll talk a bit more about that. But if you're listening and wondering, how to find out more about Eating for You and the program that Annette's been through and other ladies in the community have, I do offer the 15-minute call, and that's the first call that Annette was mentioning about. And the reason why I offer a couple of free calls, is because it's important for you to know and for me to know that we can work together, but most importantly that I can help you. I do have the occasion on those first 15-minute calls where I know at this point in time, maybe it's the timing, or no, another healthcare practitioner is going to offer the support that you need now. So that's a really important thing, because I've been receiving some feedback from ladies in our community that they've been reluctant to have calls because they feel like they're just going to be sold something that may or may not be right for them.
It definitely didn't feel like that. I mean, obviously when it got to the pointy end of, oh, do you want to sign, because we decided that we could, you would be able to help me or work with me or offer, guidance. But yeah, no, I think I said to you even early on, I said the thing that drew me to it, I watched some of the videos of you, I think online, and I just thought you were really genuine. And our phone conversations, I just thought you were really genuine. So there wasn't that sense of I'm getting roped into something, if that makes sense. So that was really important for me as well.
Yeah, no, thanks, Annette, for that. But I think what's really important too, I have been on this journey, and the Eating for You approach came about because of my own recovery from, comfort and eating and dieting and so forth. And the last thing I want for anyone is to be suggested that they do something that, well, I ethically couldn't do it, but something that's not going to work for them. And that's always been the underlying driver for me, and this is why the Eating for You approach is very much set up to help ladies become the experts of their own eating, weight and health. And that's what really brings that power and sense of control and freedom back, is that you are in charge. And I think this is quite nice, probably leading into perhaps how your thoughts about eating have changed, and what's sort of working for you now.
Yeah, I think the mindfulness is definitely the key there too, because suddenly being aware of even just recognizing hunger or not being hungry, because I think I mentioned that was something that after doing this, I sort of went, oh, I've actually never realized that, logically, but when people say, oh, I'm starving, I think, what are they talking about? Just eat, like that. So that was a big one. And just being able to check in on whether you were full or not when you had eaten. I mean, the stomach does restrict it, but your mind doesn't always restrict it, So even though you might wait a while, and then, I think my nibbling was a thing. But so that was big for me, those some of the resources that just allowed me to check in. And I think I kept doing them for probably longer than I need to, because I wanted to gain that trust, so that I was seeing, it was just giving me that concrete observation of, I don't know, acknowledging the hunger and satiety and all the rest of it. That was really helpful. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you go. Yep.
Yeah. So even now, like, I'm going through a bit of a stressful time, and yes, I recognise, probably not eating as well as I should all the time, but I'm not panicking about it. I'm not seeing it as the end of the world, because I can see that just by going, hold on, am I hungry? Do I really want that? Or why am I wanting it? Is helping me then to work through that, and not to feel, because I don't believe in deprivation. That's another thing that doesn't work as far as dieting, is that deprivation stuff.
Yes.
And so it gives you that more of a balanced, approach to your thinking and your trust issues with, I think I used to say, I don't trust, my body and my mind don't trust each other. It just doesn't quite work. So it's improving.
And that's good to hear. It's what I was going to ask you earlier, was to talk about that concept of trust, because you shared with us that whole sense of failure going through the dieting cycle, and many ladies that I talk to understand that, and it's sometimes even hard to imagine, well, what does a lifelong way of healthier eating look like? And that's the trust I know that you're trying to cultivate at the moment. Would that be right?
Oh, absolutely. And look, I was just thinking then, even as we're talking, I wish I had discovered this in my 30s, instead of being in my, nearly 60 when I first encountered you, because it would have just changed all the things that I tried, including sitting under red lights. It would have been amazing to have that sense of understanding way back.
Yeah.
Probably in
And
earlier, why not 20s, Yeah.
yeah, and I think the more that I work with ladies, and I
Mm,
often say this, that whilst yes, I've dedicated my professional life, but also my
mm,
personal life to
mm,
sorting this nonsense out about eating, because I've always thought
mm,
it's never meant to be this hard. And it's about, yeah, helping others to get that trust in themselves, to really tune in to what their mind and body is saying, and
yeah.
then making eating choices or choices not to eat based on what you're picking up. And
Mm,
that's the trust that I know that you're cultivating. And you did mention, just one thing I want to say before we forget, is that through our programs we look at monitoring progress in a different way to build trust.
yeah.
And ladies who've been part of the program for several months might sort of say, just all of a sudden the weight started coming off, and it wasn't like I was looking to lose weight. It was just that it just started happening because I got my eating habits sorted out, and that's
Mm.
what we tend to focus on. So tell us a little bit about that journey for you, Annette, in terms of, the monitoring that you mentioned, that
Yeah.
helped bring, that trust. But I know you sneak some other things in to help with the trust as well.
Just every now and then is when I'm probably checking the trust, like Anne's talking about, I do jump on the scales every now and then because my clothes are all stretchy. I'm not silly. I'm for comfort at this point in life. So I'm just, especially if I'm reaching a point where I'm thinking, oh, this can't be working, because the failure stuff is so embedded. So I do step on the scales and go, oh, okay, great, it's working. So that's taken quite a while just to get that going. But during the actual project, disregarding that, but during the process, just that actual having, it seems so simple when you see it, but just that going scale out, there's a scale out of 3, like I can't even remember, but how hungry am I? Did I eat straight away? Yes or no? Did I eat? How full am I? Things like that, which is so helpful. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
And
That's what worked for me. That was a big shift. And
yeah.
I think something you said in one of the sessions about that, and I just went, I didn't know when I was hungry or not. Yeah, it was just like the penny dropped. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it can be frustrating because we think that we should know, but it's
Mm,
about
mm,
relearning to listen to our body. And I,
mm,
often say, well, would you expect a child to read a book if they've never been taught to read?
yeah.
And you look at me and say, well, no, Sally Ann. It would be just like, okay, Annette, let's start talking in Mandarin. And it's
Mm.
like, well, neither of us know how to speak Mandarin, so that's not going to work. So
Yeah.
why is it that we expect certain things of ourselves when it comes
Mm,
to food and eating? And
yeah.
that adds to the pressure as well. And I think because, in your case and for many ladies, the kind of the expertise was handed over to somebody else
Mm,
at
mm,
quite a young
mm,
age that you
mm.
were never able to. And it's no one's fault. It's not your parents' fault. It certainly
No,
wasn't
no.
my mum's fault the way I ate when I grew up either. It's just not something that we were aware of, that
Yeah.
each individual needs to work out how to eat for themselves in terms of the quantities they
Mm,
need, and even perhaps the combinations of foods as well at certain times.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
and it's just that reassurance that you can learn this and you can apply
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
Annette, what would you suggest to ladies who are looking for that lifelong way of eating? What would you suggest at this point in time?
Well, apart from just making contact with you, actually, sort of, what have you got to lose? Like, we know, I just have found that going through this process, and having the support, the video links, just being able to hear other people's stories, but also just your insights, and that we're talking, and you'll just see something and go ping, and it'll be like, oh, So I just think, for anyone that's struggling, or even not struggling, but just recognizing that their eating's not working for them the way they need it to or want it to, whatever that looks like for different people, making that first contact with you, and just going from there, is
Yeah.
that's all. I've just found it, as I say, really, quite amazing. I sometimes still think, oh, so yeah, definitely. Yeah.
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 And thanks for sharing that. And ladies, I will put the link for the
Mm.
15-minute emotional eating profile call into this podcast notes. So you are most welcome to book in for the call. And just as Annette was sharing before, it's not a sales call. It really is
Mm.
just an introduction for me to work out whether I can help you. And I certainly wouldn't suggest you do anything if I didn't believe it was going to help you. So it really is just for you to get to know me a bit better, for me to understand what you're facing with your eating, what you want to achieve. And I actually give you a free tip to sample the mindfulness-based approach to eating as well. So you can actually try it out, which is really important. So Annette, before we finish up, what is your outlook like for your eating and your relationship with food at the
Yeah,
moment?
yeah. Oh, look, I'm hopeful. Like I actually feel, I don't know, I feel kind of calm. It sounds really weird because, as I say, at the moment it's not, but it's at the same time I'm not panicking and thinking or surrendering. I think I said to you before, just surrendering to failure. I'm not feeling that at
Yeah.
this point, or I don't feel that that's where I'll sit anymore, because I feel just with a simple bit of self-talking almost, because that's what mindfulness is, isn't it? It's about that self-cueing or self-talking. I'll be okay. So I think that's massive. That's a massive positive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and thanks for sharing that. And I think it fits really well into that concept of natural eating versus
mm,
perfect eating. And
mm,
you mentioned earlier the
yeah,
drivers for eating, which I have shared,
mm,
in various forums in the Eating for
yep,
You community. But
yep,
understanding those reasons for eating, and also understanding that we eat quite naturally for different reasons,
mm,
but it's having
mm,
that sense of control and that sense of calm that you were
mm,
talking about
mm,
in terms of your relationship with food, that's really important. And,
yeah, yep,
through the Eating for You resources and tools and so forth that we share, that's what you can do. You can actually build that toolkit for yourself,
yep,
and go back to those tools when you know
mm,
that perhaps you're not eating for hunger reasons
mm,
alone and want to
mm,
just recheck what's happening.
yeah. But even like you say, even when you recognize you're not eating, like that thing of going, well, why do I want it? Like I've checked in, I'm not actually hungry, but why am I still? And it's usually something sweet after savory. So I go, okay, well, you know that you like that. So what's it going to be? And then it's not kind of crazy. It's just like you decide on what it is, and that's enough. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah,
Definitely. And I think
yeah,
you mentioned it earlier, deprivation didn't work
yeah.
for you with the
No,
dieting
gosh, no.
approach. And I've seen it time and time again,
Mm,
ladies that I've worked with and help, with this mindful eating approach, is
mm,
that, what could have been a daily, several times a day, looking for the lolly jar or the chocolates, uh,
mm,
now becomes a mindful choice, maybe, less than a handful of times during the week. And there's
yeah,
no guilt, there's no concern, because they're saying, right, I just feel like something sweet. I don't need much. It's okay. I can have this. And it's not a problem.
that was massive for me. Is you don't have to feel deprived. Just be aware of why you're wanting something, enjoy it, savor it, and know that it's not the end of the world. Know that it's not going to be leading to destruction, so to speak.
No. And I
Yeah.
think that comes back to what you said before, is that
Mm,
trust that you are building
mm,
for
yeah.
yourself to know
Yeah.
that actually I can do this and it's not having a negative impact on my
That's
health
correct.
or my
Yeah.
weight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
other ladies have shared that as well with
Mm,
me quite a lot
mm,
over the last few weeks, that one of the biggest impacts of moving away from a diet deprivation,
mm,
heavily monitoring your weight sort of scenario to
yeah.
eating more mindfully is that sense of self-compassion, that
Mm,
it's not the end of the world if I
mm,
have the second piece of cake. It's not the end
mm,
of the world even if I eat the whole chocolate bar today. It
mm,
really
mm,
isn't. And it's more of, well, that happened. I understand why it happened.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
we just get going again with
Yeah.
that mindfulness
Yeah.
based approach. Yeah, thanks, Annette, for sharing
No,
today,
thank you.
especially your journey, because
Mm,
often ladies can feel quite alone
mm,
with their struggles with food, And, and I think this is like what you mentioned as well, part of the Eating for You community, and especially the coaching calls and catch-up calls we have as part of the program. It soon makes you realize that you're not alone, and that everybody has a battle. It's not necessarily the same battle, but it is possible to win that battle and get that sense of control over eating. Yeah, so once again, thank you. I'm sure everyone has learned a great deal and appreciates you sharing aspects of your journey with food. And for anyone who's listening and thinks, yes, look, I do have 15 minutes to spare, I will leave the link for the emotional eating profile call, and you're most welcome to join me in a call. Thanks again, Annette.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Eating for You podcast with Sally Ann Pisk. If your current way of eating is not working for you, then join me in a free 15-minute emotional eating profile call. If I can help you, I will provide you with a personalised tip to get you started with a new way of eating. The booking link is included with this episode's notes.